Are you struggling to make sense of what was done to you? Here, you will find many details to help you to understand so that you can get them out of your head and out of your life. Welcome to psychobegone. Have you ever walked away from a relationship convinced that something was fundamentally wrong with you? That you were too sensitive, too argumentative, too difficult? And you had examples to prove it. What if those examples were engineered? One of the most devastating tactics manipulators use isn't shouting, it isn't dramatic abuse. It's installing a narrative about who you are, slowly and subtly, until you defend it yourself. I'm David McDermott, and in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how that process works, and why almost everything you learned about yourself in that relationship needs to be questioned. Here's how it starts. 2 weeks into a relationship, he says something unpleasant, maybe dismissive, subtly critical. She stands up for herself and calmly says she doesn't like what he's doing. An argument begins. And in the middle of it, he says, "Oh, you're very argumentative, aren't you?" It catches her because she was not expecting that. A few weeks later, it happens again. She objects again, and as is normal, and complains that he's doing it again. There's an argument. He says, "Oh, I'm right. You are very argumentative, aren't you?" She's an emotional mess. There, in the middle of an argument, it seems that he's right. Now there's evidence. In her mind, a pattern is forming. She feels bad about herself because she didn't consider herself argumentative before. But they are, after all, in the middle of an argument. But here's what she doesn't see. He initiated the conflict. He created the stimulus, and then he labelled her reaction to it. In other words, when he says that she's argumentative, he starts the story in the middle. The story didn't start with her starting an argument. The story started with him saying something abusive, but he leaves out that bit and he goes straight to the middle and claims that she's argumentative. So he does something, she responds in a way that, the vast majority of normal, healthy people would, and then he criticizes her for responding in that way. There are other levels to this that are also concealed. The tactic of repetition comes into play here. The manipulator will repeat things over and over and over again. This is important because studies have shown, or a study of studies by a psychologist called Weaver and his colleagues, has shown that if 3 people tell you something, you're very likely to believe it. However, if you hear the same thing 3 times from one person, it has 90% of the effect of hearing it from 3 people. 90% is a significant percentage. So just think about how often the manipulator said various things to you. They wanted those ideas in your head. And there's more. Remember I said the psychopaths will directly attack people at the level of identity. Oh, sorry, that was another video. Either way, the manipulators attack people at the level of identity. And he went straight for, "You are argumentative." Now, behaviour and identity are at different levels. He can criticize her for actively engaging in the behaviour of arguing, but he went directly to, "You are argumentative." Now, because she's in emotional turmoil, she doesn't have the wherewithal to reason through this. The next time there's an argument, instead of criticizing her for arguing again, once more he goes directly to, "You are argumentative." In her head, the evidence seems to be stacking up. This is a setup. He's deliberately provoking a response and then criticizing her for having that response. He labels her this way as if he knew something about her. He gives the impression that he knows something about her that she might not have realized about herself. This is not personality discovery. It's shaping her behavior. How? Once that label sticks, she starts monitoring herself. And this is where the real damage begins. Because the next time he says something hurtful, she hesitates. Not because she accepts what he says, but because she doesn't want to be called argumentative. So she holds back. She edits herself. She accepts a little more than she normally would. And of course, he notices now the training is working. This is how behaviour is reshaped. Step 1, create the stimulus. Step 2, label the reaction. Step 3, repeat until the label becomes identity. And once it becomes identity, you don't need to control the person so much anymore. They control themselves. That's the devious part. You are trained to monitor and modify your own behaviour. And here's another aspect most people are unaware of. After a few months, it's no longer about the arguments. It's about other layers of identity. You start thinking, maybe I am difficult. Maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe I overreact. Give it enough of this type of control, it deteriorates into, I am worthless, I am useless, I am unlovable. Notice what happened. The original conflict is gone. Now you're left managing yourself in a particular way. You've been tricked into managing yourself to prevent someone else's reactions. Once that identity shift happens, they keep reinforcing it. Every time you question something they did, they remind you of your pattern. You always overreact. You're always dramatic. This is what you do. This not only controls people's behaviours, it pushes people beyond their boundaries. It destroys their sense of themselves. If a person considers themselves generous and end up believing they're mean, or somebody considers themselves honest and then ends up believing they're a liar, well, this is a huge change in their sense of themselves. This is yet another tactic that they use to destroy people's personality as a way to maintain control over them. I have some more videos about this idea of the personality change. Another common idea that people have forced on them is that they have a problem with communication. Communication with an abuser is fraught with problems. The abuser is going to blame you for that anyway, obviously. This is another thing that is not true. You are not a bad communicator. If you recognize all this, if you hear their voice in their head correcting you, if you still hesitate before expressing yourself, that isn't your personality. That's conditioning. And conditioning can be reversed. But first, you have to see it clearly. Even when the personality is gone, the installed personality isn't. You're still editing yourself. You're still doubting yourself. You're still hearing their corrections in your head. That's why healing is not a simple matter. And if you try and go no contact without understanding this mechanism, it can actually feel worse at first. Not because you made a mistake, but because the conditioning is still active. In the next video, I break down exactly why no contact initially intensifies anxiety and how this is a direct result of the conditioning process. If you want to understand what's happening in your nervous system when you step away, watch that one next. Mind yourself. Take care.